Hello, heathens.
Hello, heathens.
Oh, sultry. I
Mm.
like it.
Yes, yes, it's heathens at night.
Oh, it's so sultry. I like it. Do it again.
What are we talking about today, Cassie?
I love it. That was good. We're on part three of the seven deadly sins. We're talking about lust and envy, and you guys know the drill. It's heathens at night. It's gonna get
Sorry about
fucking
your
weird.
luck. Weird.
Weird.
Weird. Not only that, we're talking about the sins.
I have a hole in my eyebrow, and Nicole has none tonight, so.
I have no eyebrows tonight. I have nothing on. This is all you get today.
I listen. Everybody say thank you, Nicole, for being here. Thank you, Nicole, for being here.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
It's also I forgot to tell you this, so I guess I'll tell you with everybody listening because my client's also going to hear this because it is about her. It's so funny to me when people like actively listen to us and then come to have conversations about it because I can't listen to us. Because hearing our voices on like in my car sounds so it kind of freaks me out a little bit. I can't figure out why.
Well, because, we're our toughest critics, right?
Oh God, it's weird.
So when or at least when I listen to stuff like that, or look at pictures is a big one too, is I can only see it's body dysmorphia.
Oh
I can
yeah.
only see the flaws. Like I can't see the good parts.
Mm.
I mean, I'm not being like that, but like, you know what I mean? Like I,
Yes.
I can literally be like, oh, I have a zit there and I got a, no eyebrow and like my double chin's here. And, there's a wrinkle that's starting over here. We call him Fred. We don't talk about him yet. So it's
Mm.
fine.
Naming our wrinkles, I love
You might
it.
as well. Named our zits. We might as well name our wrinkles. What the fuck? Oh yeah, that's joy right there. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
We don't like
Yeah.
her.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I guess it is partly that. It's also just so I don't know. When do you ever really listen to your voice recorded?
Only on the podcast. Or
Yeah,
maybe a voicemail. Maybe.
maybe. And that's a hard maybe.
Right.
It's just it's a very surreal, very weird feeling, but it's also really cool that you guys listen to us and then come talk to me about it. I like it a lot. I like it a lot.
When I did listen to our podcast, I found myself actually laughing again when we laugh.
Okay, you've done that.
I'd be in the car, I'd be like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm laughing at us laughing.
We're the only two people that find us this funny.
I mean, really, we only do this podcast for us anyways.
Yeah, like for being honest, yes. He's that nut.
This makes me research topics that I really want to know about.
Yeah, and
It
even ones I
makes,
haven't thought about.
right, right.
Like, I don't know, I just didn't think about this. I told you at the other episode, I didn't think about this. Why would I? I don't know. Who talks about this?
Who does? Who knew they were so lengthy?
You knew one word had 1 million freaking meanings behind it and 17,000 articles.
No wonder we're so fucking confused on how to not sin.
I mean,
I
and
mean, how are we supposed to actually like get this right?
yeah.
I don't want to go to purgatory and I really don't want to go to hell, whatever that is. But not that we're gonna go there, but like, I'm just saying, how do I stay out of it when it's confusing?
Yeah, literally. Okay. Show on the road.
All right, can we start with lust? That's the one I got on top.
Yes, we're starting with us. That's what I have as well.
On top.
On top. Start us off, Nicole. Bring it to us. Give it to us.
The first thing I have for lust is very interesting because obviously I really only associate with sex, right? Like we don't actually associate with anything but like sex, right? And that's how the whole controversy starts, especially in the Christianity, like certain types or sects of Christianity, how they interpret like how to have sex, when to have sex, when not to have sex, when like all of these like interlaying of like, no, I understand it this way, no, I understand it this way. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, can we get at least these down straight? Like, come on. Um, the first thing I got about it is it creates a gateway to other despair.
Hmm.
So while I was researching this, I could really see the fact that sex itself isn't inherently bad. But if you're replacing like food with sex or interacting with people with sex, or like if that's your like drug is the best way for me to describe it, it will lead you to ruin and to death and all of the other things. And
Yeah.
that's, and again, this goes back to we need to learn the balance of it and the intentions of why we're doing this certain aspect. And that's really what it comes down to. All of these temptations or sins or whatever you want to like label them as, they're all these balancing acts that we need to be mindful of like why we're doing it. Are we doing this in hate? Are we doing this to get it back at somebody? Are we doing this? Like, why are we doing this? Are we doing this to hurt somebody else? Are we doing it to hurt ourselves? Like,
Right.
that's how complicated it really kind of gets, but also kind of easy because if you know why you're doing it, then you can either make a better choice for yourself. Like, is this is my best interest kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think this gets a bad rap too because temptation of the flesh is a perfect like statement of that, of how we um coveted or you know it's an animalistic kind of hormonal thing that like once I think I read in here that once testosterone is basically to blame for sex or the feeling of it or the inhibition of like not of having a controlled thought about it.
Mm.
So it lowers testosterone in both parties, not just in one or the other, but in both parties it lives in.
Mm.
And that's what really kind of gets ramped up. And then all of a sudden, your decision making brain kind of gets like,
Snuffed.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Snuffed out.
snuffed out. We get overwhelmed by sexual temptation. Like all we think about, whether it's a star, whether it's a, um, I mean, the boy next door, the girl next door, whether it's, somebody at work, whether it's somebody in the street that you always see, girl at the bus stop, boy at the cafe, like, you don't even have to know these people and you can get all overwhelmed with like these delusions.
The fantasy.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
fantasy of it all.
You build this fantasy up and then you're like, well, in your head, you haven't even said anything in the real world to this person.
Right.
But yet in your head, you have built a house and had a baby and got married and like, like it's a whole thing over here. And, like I don't necessarily think it's, a female perspective of having these kind of like, oh, I need to get married and I need to have 2.5 kids and this is what my house is going to look like. Um, I think, anybody could have those kind of like thoughts or fantasies.
Well, yeah, and I'd say we're like wired to. It's just when you let it run rampant, and now you're not even living in
Yeah.
reality anymore, and you're only
Right.
living in this fantasy world that you've created. That's when it's a problem.
Right. Because like you're not even, and I remember being like this as well, as like having this whole like conversation in my head and then going up to the person and being like crazy because they have no idea what I was talking about because I had a whole conversation in my head with myself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like having a dream that your partner cheated on you and then being mad at your partner for cheating on you, but they didn't really cheat on you.
And like
Do you know what I mean? Like,
legitimately being mad and treating them like they did something
yes,
wrong. Yeah.
yes, yes. It's along the same concept of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, what? It was not only a sin, if anything. Oh, sorry. I had to
That's
figure out what I
okay.
would said right there. So in the the Kama Sutra came up, and this is Hindu, right?
I think so.
So not only was sex in the Hindu uh, culture, religion, it was celebrated. It was a sacred, holy act. They had a whole temple and actually guidelines of like positions that I'm sure have a significant meaning of like if you do it this way, it means this or whatever.
You're right.
Um, and we're even talking about the holy sex or holy sex,
The holy
holy,
sex.
the holy sex, this the holy act of prostitution, group sex, homosexuality. In this act, sex, and religion is one.
Mm,
And I like that because it's the first thing, besides that we get into Rome and Greek, they also uh, were very much worshiping the fertility gods and goddesses. And um, they were very free with their sexuality. This is really an Eastern, it's nice because it's really an Eastern kind of like philosophy where they're really open and they're honest about sex and what the divine purpose is and that kind of stuff. And I really, if you're having a hard time with your sexuality because of you were brought up in Christianity, I would really look into the religious parts of the Kama Sutra and other Eastern religions and see what they say in it so you can find some footing in it where you start to feel better about it. And I think that would
yeah.
really help. Um, orgy is really meant, it's the original meaning of it was secret ritual.
Makes sense.
Right. And with the Roman and Greek, like they knew it was a total body experience. It's a very energetic thing too. Actually, there's a book that I put on my list and it's by Jason Miller and I think it's hold please
Hold, please.
because this is important. Sex, Sorcery, and Spirit by Jason Miller. And I really think that would be again, if you feel so employed to do it or to do it to buy
Well,
that
to
book
do
and
it.
look into sexual right. Lust. Um, this is one of the books that I'm going to read about it as well. And this will give you more of a mystical or magical kind of interpretation of it.
Mm.
Um, with the Greek and Roman, they worshipped and had phalluses carved out of stone and put in temples. And this really signified not only the act of sex, of human sex, but this also uh, represented the sex of like fertility, but also like crops being like like having abundance of crops and all that's how we got all like the living things on earth is from these gods and goddesses having sex, the creation of it.
Hmm.
Um Now back to Christianity a little bit, where they're a little bit monks were trying to stay. One of the reasons why it was a sin is because it's one thing that they couldn't quite get over what they were tempted by to do. Um, and they would actually put their fingers in the lamp oil flames to distract them from lust.
Damn, it's pretty.
Well, Christianity does have a little bit of extremism. I mean, they're not the only ones, but they tend
Yeah,
sometimes to get a little crazy, a little
yeah.
dramatic.
I mean, that's fucking intense,
Yeah, well, it was, the 1400s, so, or before that. I think it
right?
was like 300 BC. No, 300 after Christ.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
hey Gary, why are
Um,
your fingers so burnt? You having problems?
imagine.
Gary's struggling. Look
Gary's really struggling.
at those fingers.
Ooh.
That man is struggling.
Do you need some help? I don't know. So this takes us to the Old Testament and the Ten Commandments. There's two things about lust on that. Thou shalt not commit adultery, and thou shalt not covet neighbor's wife.
Mhm. Which they say lust leads directly to.
Right. Although I would feel like that's almost like envy too. Coveting somebody's wife, that would be like, no, I want her. Meh.
Could be, but in Catholicism, it's more the fact that you are lusting sexually than you are envying that person as a person.
Well, yeah, we all know that women are property anyway. I mean, come on, get with
Duh.
it. Um, so this went on after they decided that lust was a deadly sin and it was the path to hell. And after this, they started to yeah, when Pope Gregory finalized the seven deadly sins, he also indoctrinated the fact that you would have to be celibate if you were a pope or a cardinal or somebody in the Catholic faith, like
Nuns.
priests, nuns, stuff like that. This is when they really indoctrinated that, um, all of that. Like, okay, they can't have any. And really, what it was for, um, was the fact that they didn't want these priests to have families and then lose, items of the church to the sons of the popes.
Mm,
Because like Christian heirlooms or Christian like churches would all go to the son of the family.
gotcha.
Um, but like anything, we take it too far and the pendulum swings all the way over. So then we even get to the part where like even in marriage, you're not supposed to lust. Because that sex was only for creation and that's it.
This is a good time for me to add this. According to the Catechism of the Catholic Church issued by the Vatican in 1992, lust is, quote unquote, disordered desire for an inordinate enjoyment of sexual pleasure. And it goes on to state that sexual pleasure is morally disordered when sought for itself, isolated from its procreative and unitive purposes. 1992,
That's
the Vatican put that out, basically saying that sex is alone for procreative and unitive purposes.
and that's it, because you're supposed to be praying instead.
Yeah. 1992?
I know.
That was a
Well,
wild time.
we were coming out of the 80s of excess.
Yeah,
You
that's
know what I
true.
mean? Like
That's true.
it kind of makes sense. Like they were like ho ho ho.
Oh,
Oh,
let
okay.
me stop you right there.
Let's stop right there. And it's that it really goes back to the scary part of it is the overwhelming power of sexual desires, where we know that this happens where people will do incredible things for um just for sex.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I don't necessarily think it's the act of sex, it's the thought of having sex.
Yeah, that's what I understand it to be too. It's like a good one that I found from not even a thing about the seven deadly sins, but this article on Psychology Today. This person said, lust becomes a problem when we use it to quote unquote control our feelings and therefore our interactions with and connections to other people. So it's not like it's controlling us. We're letting it like we're using it to control our interactions and like connections with other people based on our loss. And I feel like that's like how I that made me like think, oh my God, okay, it's not actually just the sexual, it's your intent behind it and the way that
Hmm.
you're using lust. Cause like again, lust is inherently in us.
Right.
I mean, we're meant to yeah, we have all the stuff to procreate, otherwise we wouldn't.
Yeah.
That stuff. Anyways, um, it makes sense that it's like it's about what you're doing with it and how far you're letting it go. To like,
Hmm.
if you're letting it, like using it to like be like, oh, I gotta be this way because otherwise I can't be around this person. My interaction's not gonna be the same. I'm not gonna get what I want.
Right, right. It's more a manipulative tactic than it is an actual like
Because you've lusted so fucking hard over this person, you have to now let it like you got to use those images to make sure you get what you want.
absolutely. Absolutely. Actually, this reminds me of another book, um, The Art of Seduction.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think it's by Robert Greene. Um,
Yes.
listen to it, buy it, do what you got to do because it helps you. It actually puts into these very nice little stories about even for history. It makes you aware of what when somebody's manipulating you with that kind of stuff, like seducing you and like using these tactics to like get one over on you or whatever their attentions are.
Mm.
But it was a very good read. Um, where am I? Least to blame. I don't know what that. Consulted by the flame by oh, so we're going to purgatory. So in purgatory, people that had committed lust would be they would be consumed in flames. And this is actually where they had gotten the whole like image of entire hell instead of Dante's like levels of hell.
Mm.
They have really adapted this part of hell, the flames. Everybody's on fire and like, this is how you're going to be tortured for the rest of eternity. Mm, It's so funny. I typed them out so I could read them, and now I don't know why I put some of these down. It is in the second level of hell, so not that bad. Um, and in this,
Sorry, would you like to run that back?
it's not
Not
that bad.
that bad.
It's not that bad. Second layer. It's fine. In this level of hell, people that had committed lust would be flung by fiery, battering winds with no rest to be a symbol of the storm of the power of lust. Like that's how much lust can like, hey, it's the
We
mid-centuries.
weren't all burned at the stake in our past lives, okay? Some of us sound think that sounds pretty fucking bad.
Well, you get burned at the stake a couple, centuries and it happens,
And
right?
you're like,
Like
oh, that's not that bad.
it's not that bad. It's only the second level. There are worse things in hell, first of all. Let's talk about. Wait until we get to envy,
Yeah, yeah,
because after envy, this isn't that bad. Just a
yeah.
little flame. Um, move to yeah, okay. I already said that. I don't know what that means. Chastity. Chastity is the one thing that I really had. Like, chastity is the virtue of lust. And I even had a talk with my mentor today. I was like, what what is chastity? What does that mean? And that's why I'm gonna read that book because he was like, read this book. And I was like, okay, so maybe I'll learn what chastity is there.
Fucking
But
magicians.
I know fucking magicians, dude. In a broad sense, it can also involve practicing self-control or moderation in different aspects of life beyond just sexuality. Lust was condemned even in marriage during the Dark Ages. This is after Rome had fell. So I believe in the history part of it. When Rome fell, a lot of people thought different things about why it fell and why God let it fall and stuff like that. And one of them was, because they would have lavish sex parties and because they were very sexually open and that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of the Christians thought that that was why. And I think this is why it took a really dark swing into being like, no, no, not even a little,
Not even a little baby.
not
Which
even a
is
little.
always, what it makes me think of is like, okay, this is kind of a hard left here, but
I like hard laughs.
how'd y'all have kids? Like you just did you
Do you think they just laid there? I was like,
do you think that there was like a scheduled thing that the church was okay with and they were like, all right, it's when this is what we have to do. We're not allowed to enjoy this. So like, you know what I mean? Like how you was
yeah,
it
that's I don't know if they have it anywhere where I guess I haven't seen it where they were like, no, they were scheduled to only have it on Monday morning.
no, yeah, no. I haven't
Right.
either, but I'm like, how did you like you're not even allowed to be lustful within your marriage, meaning you're not even allowed to like want to be with your partner sexually.
Well, part of them didn't necessarily want to be with their partners sexually because they were forced to be together because, women were property. So,
Yeah, okay, that's I forgot about that.
that whole thing.
Well, oh,
We ate the apple. We descended from Eden. It's a thing that we are still paying for today.
terrible, shameful.
Terrible. They believe that demons actually did possess people in the committing of these acts. So that's why they ended up like the guy who did who wrote the Maleficara book for the witch trials or hunters in that day.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
like when you press your lips together. It means I did something wrong.
No, it means I literally have no idea what the fuck you're talking about is what that was. You said malice something and something witch trials, and I said,
It makes me hot.
yeah, whatever. Mala.
Maleficarum, I think.
What's this?
What's this? What's this?
Uh, Hen Henrich Kramer? I was going to say, I don't think that sounds right, but I really don't know here. Let me pull up Britannica. Uh,
It was definitely a book for the witch um murders that they did, where the witch hunters had this specific book on how to find a witch, and he
y-
made this book. I'm
um,
probably saying it completely wrong too. I think look
I
up
think it's Malleus Maleficarum.
yes,
Malleus
yes.
Maleficarum.
I just missed
Says
the middle
in
part.
Britannica, which is my
Wikipedia.
holy of holies. It says it's a detailed legal and theological document from 1486 regarded as the standard handbook on witchcraft, including its detection and its expiration, extir extirpation, extirpation. Huh.
No,
We're gonna skip over that until
no.
well into the 18th century. Its appearance did much to spur on and sustain some 2 centuries of witch hunting hysteria in Europe. The Malleus was the work of 2 Dominicans, Johann Springer, Dean of the University of Cologne, maybe, in Germany, and Henrik Bremer, professor of theology at the University of something in Austria and something else in Austria. In 1484, Pope Innocent the 4, 5, 6, 7th issued the bull Summus.
Oh, these are words.
I
No
don't
wonder we can't go to heaven. Can't
Summus
even pronounce it.
Desiderantus Effectibus, in which he
Yeah.
deplored the spread of witchcraft in Germany and authorized Springer and Kramer to extirpate extirpate
Exterminate.
extirpate it.
Oh.
It says it confided the folklore and beliefs of the Alpine peasants.
Oh my goodness.
I
And then
I
they just gave them reason to kill people. Really.
mm-hmm.
This is what happens. Uh
It was
Admodius is the demon of lust.
Asmodeus.
Asmodeus.
Wonder how many times I've said that on the podcast. Said a lot.
We'd have to go back and look
Asmodeus.
at it. Um, okay, one more thing about Christianity. When the Puritans came over to Plymouth Rock, Massachusetts in 1620 to form a very pious religion with strict views, being caught having sex would earn you a whipping, a public shaming. Women that were caught had to wear the red A of adultery on their dress. Uh, and this is really this is how the witch trials in America started. Is this is the beginning of it.
Them motherfuckers. I
Yeah.
would love to be dropped for 2 seconds in a Protestant square for everybody to see. They'd be like, witch! And then I'm gone.
Witch, right? Poof.
Scared for the rest of their lives.
Don't kill them.
And
I'm watching.
then gone. Scared.
That'd be great, actually.
Women extinct in Protestant history.
I didn't realize I loved history so much until I really started doing this, and I'm like, my God, I love it.
Yeah, it's so enjoyable.
Side note, little secret. When we were in Boston and we were in the harbor, I legit was having a whole nerd moment when we were like, I'm like, this is where they literally spilled the tea.
Yeah, mhm.
I'm like,
I think you did say that.
I probably did.
I think you did.
I
She
still,
is
it's
geeking
very
out.
over. I was totally geeking. I was like, oh my God, this is where it happened.
This right here is where they drop the tea.
I don't even think I thought it was going to be that overwhelming until I got there and I was like,
Yeah. What the fuck?
okay, back to number 5. Lust is very biological, almost animalistic, and it's a drive to create, to procreate. Dopamine is romance. That's what we get when we like before with the act of it, right? But testosterone is lust, and it is found in both men and women. Dopamine triggers testosterone, triggers sex drive. The more aroused a person gets, the less they can make a clear judgment. Balancing sex drive is a normal. It becomes lust when those scales are tipped.
Mhm.
So really, at the end of the day, you're not gonna like ruin. You're not gonna go to hell, but you're gonna create your own hell on earth
Right.
because you're going to ruin your life. I mean, think about this like any drug. You start off like watching porn, and then like you can't get enough of it. And then you're watching it on your break time in your car every moment you get. And then you're like not going to work, not being productive with your family. Like it's a slow, or it could be a fast burn. I don't know. I don't know how you live your life, but it's those things that can slowly kind of creep in and then all of a sudden it's all consuming and we didn't even notice it.
Right. That's why they have groups for it, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, sex is fun though. Like it, and it feels good. Like it's one of those things that like we can do as human beings that no other spiritual creature can do. It's an energy exchange. It is one thing that connects us together as people. Like there's a lot of like great things about sex that it is sacred first and foremost. And I think if we come to it as it is being a sacred thing, I think we could really benefit as being, I don't know, grown-ups and being able to actually, talk and being able to like control your own sex.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all I got.
I only have a few things outside of that. Um, I had a person can have a lust for power or material things as well, but when it comes like when it's moral and spiritual uses, the term's typically referred to as sexual activities, just to be clear. So, like, when it comes to this specifically, obviously, we don't know, but just to make it clear. um, what else do I have here? I only have a few things. Um, so it's also just to elaborate too, it's people who utilize sexual desire and fantasy as a primary coping mechanism, because that's also
Yeah.
a big problem is when you're using it to cope with your life, you can really lose touch with the real world and the actual
Hmm.
people in it. Because you're again, like we said, lost in the fantasy, but
Right.
it's a problem when it becomes a coping mechanism. It's not a good tool in our tool shed.
No, and I think it was what was that movie I just watched? It was a show. It ruined my life. What was it? Um, Baby Reindeer.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
And at one point after he had something done to him, uh he went on this like whole, and I appreciated the whole montage of it because it really opened my mind into um not only having something tragic happen to you, um, but also exploring it afterwards too, and how he explored that.
Mhm.
I mean, it wasn't good or bad. It was probably more bad or devastating, but the coping of what that opened up into and how he like worked through that sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, because having that, like, using lust as a coping mechanism, the problem here is too that it like, and that's a great example of it, is that it leads to your like, you lose the ability to connect with people and have that intimate, meaningful connection.
Which is funny, that's what you're looking for. You're trying to find it,
Yeah,
right? But like every time you do it, you don't feel it,
right.
right? But you just keep doing it because you're like, maybe this time.
Yeah. Yeah, and worst of all, it can lead to you not getting your deeper needs met to feel loved, supported, and connected.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's exactly it.
Which is hard. I think intimacy is one of those harder things to really like. Oh my God. I'm about ready to shoot a cat though. Can you hear her?
I heard her a couple times, yeah.
Okay.
She's making it through the noise canceling.
Because she is loud. She's upset.
She's chatty. She has problems and she
She
needs you to know.
she needs me to know about it.
Yeah.
Um, I do think intimacy is one of those harder things to really like cultivate, especially when you have trust issues, right? Like it's whether you don't trust yourself, whether you don't trust, people for whatever reason.
Hmm.
And I think sex is the easier way to like start that.
Yeah, I
It can
agree.
be, right? Um, yeah, those are two things I really want to look into. Chastity and
Intimacy.
intimacy. Yeah.
Yeah, intimacy can be a hard one to master or even really be good at.
Right, right.
Especially when you have a partner, everybody has different forms of intimacy and like what they
Mm-hmm.
think it feels intimate. But then at the same time, sometimes people don't know what they think intimacy is. If you were to ask somebody, so how you and your partner experience intimacy, they'd probably look at you and say, um,
Right. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm like, do I even know what the meaning of that is? We should do a podcast on that.
yeah, I could add it to the list, the
All right,
ever-growing
I like
list.
that. I
Are you
like
guys
that.
ever gonna run out? How are you guys gonna do that forever? Is there enough stuff for you to talk about? Well,
Well, we haven't run out yet.
I think we have enough for next year and more. So
So here we go.
here we fucking are. Um, okay, buddy. Moving in it envy.
Envy.
So I know you didn't get to finish your thingy on it, so you want to give us what you got and then go from there?
Depends, because I have a long list still.
Oh, for envy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said that, but I didn't like mean it was a short list.
Oh, okay. Well, you can still bring it to us.
Envy was one of the ones that was really interesting because I do feel like they said something about how like a lot of people will talk about the other sins, especially like lust would probably be the most, and pride. Those two would be the most famous of
Mhm.
them. Wrath, obviously, but a lot of people don't like to talk about envy
Yep. Yeah. Well, yeah.
because I think it's one of those things that we really do a lot.
All the freaking time.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not talking about jealousy, which we'll get into later, but
Mm-hmm.
just to be clear, we're not talking about jealousy, we're talking about envy, and we're going to explain like what envy is, obviously. But
Mm-hmm. All right. So the first thing that I wrote down was death dealing action. That's probably the simplest, like, but we all know that I'm not simple. So,
I was gonna say simple how? What
right.
do you mean?
Wants what others have is envy. Um, the guide for Christian theology for the next 1400 years, in so that we can see how throughout time the thoughts we had. Oh, okay, now I got what I was trying to say. I was like, what the fuck? The funny thing is I didn't type that out. I actually said that out loud, like to my computer, and that's what it wrote. I
Mm,
mean, that's what I said.
mm.
So basically, this was a newer sin. This didn't wasn't on the original, like when the monk was in the and I forgot his name, but when he went to the desert and like wrote down the temptations, you know that guy.
I want to say Constantine, and it's not Constantine. Piano, he lives in my
Oh,
brain. He, he
I
has
like that.
taken up residence.
I like it. I like it. I have a space for him too. It's back here.
Yep. Yep. Constantine. No.
Lust.
Mm,
Mm.
mm.
Um,
Lusty lady.
so when the fall of the Roman Empire, this is really started because what they could see is people really pining over what was left of the Roman Empire and them really like coveting these artifacts. Because before then, nobody really had anything to be envious of. So the more stuff they accumulated, the more envy grew.
Mm.
And either you want it for yourself or you want them not to have it.
Yeah, because it's like that resentment that they have it, and like sadness that somebody else has something that you don't, or they're
Hmm.
better. You think they're better than you, so now you're beyond jealous. You're upset because somebody's better than you.
Right. And if you only had that thing, your life would be so much better.
Right.
These like twisted toxic things that we tell ourselves that make it justified.
Well, and it's to be clear too, it's not just materials, right? It's that character trait of like, well, they're
Hmm.
just so much more patient than me. And if I had more patience, then I would be better. And you're like, you resent them because of their patience or
Absolutely. I have that here in the yeah. They
yeah.
talked about that where it was literally not just a item, it could be a gift that somebody has. Like if they were a singer, you get jealous or envious of like them being a good singer or a good writer or whatever, right? Like if I
Mhm.
could do that, I could write too. Like
Yeah.
um it there's a Latin word, it's called invidia, and that is Latin for envy. And they actually took that from the Greek goddess Invidia. And she was envy. She was the persona of envy.
Mm,
Um to translate that is to look with malice.
mm,
Envy is like a poison. It starts off slowly and it builds. So again, it kind of I think all these sins are kind of like that where they take hold, but they start off really small and you're like, "Oh, that's not that bad." And then all of a sudden you're like burning down somebody's house. Like I think it can swing.
yeah. And well, envy is that poison to happiness.
Right, right. It is. Yeah, because it's like you start feeling bad about yourself.
Yeah. And that doesn't just hit you physically, it hits you spiritually.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's taking you away from God
Yeah.
or your spiritual path. You don't have to be God. Uh, there was another thing about like, I hate you for having something that I don't have.
Resentment, baby.
What envy can't possess, it destroys. It
Mm,
could look like vandalism. We talked about possession of like singing well or a gift that somebody else has, and if you just had it, you would be better. Envy converts consuming all your thoughts. Anything that you talk about, it would be anything you talk about would drown out everything of it would just be all consuming. And this is
mhm.
where you see people really get like, for lack of a better term, kind of out of their mind because they're just so uh, consumed. Consumed. There we go. Uh,
Yeah,
consumed with their. If think it, it might even turn into wrath at that point, but it will lead to murder. It will lead to destruction.
right. To add to that, because that's a good one for this, is in the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, the story of Cain's murder of his brother.
Dude, I was just gonna say that.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Because I was like, yeah, dude, that's a good
Yeah,
one
yeah.
for that.
Yeah, yeah. Cain and Abel were actually it was the first murder, but envy was the first murder because the Lord wanted offerings from both Cain and Abel, and he favored Abel's offering more than he did Cain. And instead of Cain trying to better himself, he seeked to destroy his own brother because of it.
Right.
And like these are with these like myths or favorite fairy tale, not fairy tales. That's probably sacrilegious. Uh Mythologies, if you will. That's what they're really trying to teach us is like, look, like what th- so you don't become this person, right? So you don't become Cain and you don't become overwhelmed with like a feeling that you have to murder your own brother.
Mm.
Um, and yep. Also, they said that for the stories, because there's many stories about Adam and Eve and who the snake is, and I believe it's a lot of different things, but in some religion or some Christianities, they believe Satan envied Adam and Eve, so he seeked to destroy that, and that's why he had them eat from the tree of wisdom.
Mm.
And the one thing that Adam and Eve wanted was immortality.
Yeah. I have another one too. That envy also led Joseph's brothers to sell him into slavery because he was the favorite of their father Jacob. I'm like, I didn't
Hmm.
realize how much envy showed up in the Bible.
Yeah, there's a couple more times too that I didn't like necessarily put down, but I remember that story too
I'm
because
like,
they sold him
dang,
into slavery. I was like, damn,
damn, damn. Jealous because you're your father. He's your father's favorite, so you sell him into slavery?
what did they say when they went back to like their dad's house and was
Excuse
like,
me? Oh, I'm sure it's in the. It's probably got to be in there.
oh, I'm sure. Yeah, that's probably true. Like, yeah, yeah, we sold what's his name down the Nile there.
Yeah, because fuck that guy. He was your favorite. Goodbye. Hey,
Uh, yeah, yeah. So envy can also arise as like hatred, joy that your neighbor has had misfortune. So like if somebody had like a bad accident or they were doing well and then they're not doing well and then you were happy about that. If they had some sort of like falter and you were like, yes, like a ha ha.
I also have
That's
something.
envy, right?
I have something for this to back that up because Aristotle and Plato, both who are non-Christian philosophers, they
Mm-hmm.
argued that envy leads to a desire to destroy those who are envied so that they can be stopped from possessing anything at all, and that envy is thus treated as a form of resentment to the point of murder.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, good
It's
Lord.
a it's envy's if you don't get it under control, it could really you could really do some damage.
Yeah.
In the Divine Comedy, the punishment for envy was to have your eyes sewn shut because the sin was committed through the eyes.
Okay.
In Buddhism, envy was two things. It was jealousy and covetousness. Both were roadblocks to enlightenment.
Mm.
And in um, Buddhism, I can do this, I swear.
You're doing
Uh,
great, buddy.
there was four truths, and I don't know what they are, but I know it's come up at least twice on here. So, if we look that up to the four truths of Buddhism, Buddha had a thought of envious souls were reborn as titans. Nothing is ever good enough, and they're stuck on this eternal focus of inadequacy. So really that's what it does is envy really brings out your insecurities, your inadequacies, like anything that you can like downgrade yourself instead of so then you don't see your own gifts, your
Mm.
own uniqueness anymore because you want to be somebody else or you think the grass is always greener or something like that. So instead of putting like fertilizer on your lawn to make it greener, you go over and put gasoline on your neighbors. And that's where envy comes. Like that's how it plays out. Now in Judaism, envy is dependent on how you use it. It can actually be a motivator. So if a scholar envies another scholar of knowing more or having more wisdom and they want that too, it motivates the scholar to keep achieving this wisdom. But if envy is used for taking something from somebody, that's when it becomes a sin.
Yeah.
So it's really the intention of, and then Islam, envy is the evil eye, the hateful stare. It is bitterness and resentfulness. And then the blue eye that we always see, that's now very capitalism now, that's actually to ward off the envy,
Mm.
the evil eye. So you would have this. That's why it's everywhere in um, the Middle East, is because they put it everywhere to ward off envious stares and stuff like that.
Interesting.
We also have envy in some fairy tales. Just one of them is Snow White, how the queen um, is always trying to be the fairest of the land. And then that one moment when Snow White became the fairest and she was envious of this.
Hmm.
Like I think in the original story, it says that she turns yellow and green in envy.
Mm.
Um, so you can also just being a good person can uh arouse envy in other people.
Yeah. I saw in this article that it's described
It's a crime.
described it as the difference between material envy and spiritual envy. And spiritual is that where you're like their spiritual goodness or those that have progressed, you are envious of them spiritually.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a slippery, like it's a little, like thought that just kind of like gets in there, but like you don't quite see it or you can't pull it out, kind of, you know what I mean? Like you can't
Yeah.
acknowledge it, right?
Right.
And I think that's why these personas are so malleable because they don't they don't have one form. It's not like you're like, haha, there it is. I found it. It's like I'm here and then I'm here and then I'm here and then I'm here and it changes all the time. It's a slippery slope kind of thing. And then last but not least, the demon of envy is Leviathan.
Python.
Leviathan is a destructive, chaotic force consuming and overwhelming a person from just within, as Leviathan is the monstrous creature lurking in the depths. Envious thoughts to lie beneath the surface of the human interaction and sometimes subtly influencing behaviors until it devours or harms a spirit.
Hmm.
There's also a very thin line between envy and justice.
Yeah.
This one is, I don't know if it would, I guess it would be more of like the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Right.
Um, and that's all I got.
The only thing I have outside of that is many people say jealous when what they mean is envious.
Hmm. Yeah, so jealousy, what is jealousy?
So I just saw it described as envy and jealousy. They're subtly different constructs. Subtly. Keep that in mind.
Hmm.
If envy is the personal pain caused by the desire for the advantages of other, jealousy is the personal pain caused by the fear of losing one's advantages to others or sharing one's advantages with others.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it did to me too. I was trying to like come up with something in my head to explain that more, but I'm like, makes sense.
No, it does make sense. Well, envy, I think jealousy could probably turn into envy
I agree.
because it does feel like a small E and a big E, you know, like a small J and a big E.
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. A biggie and a little e. Like
Yeah,
a,
because jealous would be more like it's a fleeting feeling. Like you're like, oh, I wish I did that. But that's all it really goes for, right? It's just
yeah.
like, oh, I really wanted to do that. I feel bad. But I
It's
think that's all it goes for, right?
yeah, it's like, I don't know. Um, a good example for me would be Bella has this really cool ice maker and it makes this really cool little nugget ice and it just works all on its own. And I'm like, damn, I'm jealous. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not like, I fucking hate you. How dare you get that? Like,
I've
I
got to
don't have
destroy
one.
it.
Fuck that machine. I'm gonna fuck it up. Envy is
We're,
also, I think, what keeps people from being happy for their friends when they succeed. It's not just jealousy, because you could be jealous you didn't go with your friend and be like, damn, I'm jealous. I wish I would have experienced that. Envy is when
hmm.
you're like, you genuinely cannot be happy for your friend when they have a win.
Yeah,
I was thinking about that while reading this.
that's a good one too. Because, like, how many times, I don't know, like, I guess that would be a good acknowledgement to say, like, when your friend comes to you with a win, like, how do you react? How do you feel? Like, it's a good place to, like, really, like, because sometimes I think we do these things, but we don't acknowledge them.
Mm-mm.
You'd be like, oh, and then like later on, you're like, yeah, she did this, and it was whatever, and you're all kind of sour about it. And it's like having those feelings, because like I think for a long time for me is like I didn't with either it was more, I don't know if it was envy per se. Maybe you're just on the cusp of both of them, but like just silly things. Like if you're playing a game and you don't win and you get like all envious about the winner. No.
I mean, yeah, but I feel very I'm like, that's just called being competitive. Ugh.
Well, it's envy light, you know. It's like
No,
it's
I
just
agree.
a yeah, it's
It
like
depends on how you like let it go, right? Like,
right. Like
Uno's
do
a
you
good
flip the
one.
table over
Yeah, and
because
like
you
freaking get all
lost?
pissed off. Yeah, exactly. You're mad at them because that's resentment. Now you're resenting them
Yeah,
because
now you're resenting them. Mm-hmm. For what? Because you
you
lost at
suck.
sorry? Can't
I
help it
mean,
if you
seriously. That's exactly that.
All right, that's all I got, buddy. Envy. Don't do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, try pay attention to it, I guess is the best way to and don't be scared to at
Oh,
least to yourself say, maybe this isn't lust and maybe this is envy.
what is the virtue of
Gratitude.
gratitude? That's a good one. Also, like when you find yourself being envious, it'll be a good time for you to sit back and like think about all the good things that you do have for yourself
Hmm.
instead of that lack of stuff, like really looking at like what good I do, what good that I bring to the table. Like, and I think that'll really make you, really be there for a friend, a partner, whatever, uh, for their wins because you can be like, dude, I've had win twos. And I'm like, I'm so happy you've had wins. And then we can both be happy genuinely instead of being like, ugh.
Yeah, absolutely. I had
Mhm.
something pop in that, okay, we say this a lot, we're gonna say it again. New level, new devil, because we're starting to understand it better, right? I feel like the first time we heard that, I was like, yeah, whatever the fuck that means, but okay.
Right.
Um, I just realized and what popped in immediately after that was when I was having car troubles, my engine blew up. I was mad at everybody that had money to fix their cars and had a good working car. I was mad because I was envious that I did not have that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize it until literally right now, but it's like that's like that new level, new devil kind of stuff where like you now we're going to put you through how are you going to handle this envy? It wasn't
Right.
about this or that or the physical aspect of it of like fuck your car engine blew up and like how are you going to do that? Of course part of it is, but there's this other stuff that you don't realize until after the fact like I am right now that like damn I was struggling with envy during that and I didn't even realize it.
Right. Right. But you do now, so
But I do now, so that's really nice.
it's so yeah, because it's a perfect example of envy that like not looking at what you do have, not what counting your blessings, all that bullshit, looking at the brighter side, which is really hard when you're in the mud,
Yeah,
which is what I call that when you're in it and you're not thinking straight kind of thing. You can't reflect yet, right?
right.
You just have to do, you're surviving. That's it. That's all you're doing. You're not reflecting. And I think if you have somebody in your life that's kind of in the mud like that, it's not really that helpful to go in and be like either rescue them or um try to make it like it's not as important or dire as they think it is.
Right.
The best thing you can do is just support them where they're at, that they're not alone, that that I'm here with you. And if we gotta go to every dealership to do whatever, like that's what you do.
Right.
It's just being there for them. But like, not, yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it. I agree with
Hmm.
you. Yeah, there's a lot of ways I didn't realize envy can show up, and I think like I said earlier, if you start looking at it and you're like asking yourself, are you jealous or are you envious, and realizing the difference between the two, it's going to start helping because sometimes when you call it out to yourself, even you're like, that's envy. You are envious right now. That is not jealousy, and you better be fucking careful. It can kind of help. I talk to myself a lot, but
Yeah, me
it
too.
helps.
No, it does help. No, I talk to myself all the time because I have to like calm my shit down.
Yeah, you would not want a world of Cassie and Nicole living in it without us talking to ourselves. Like it
Absolutely.
would
Like
not be good.
some of the mantras that I'm like, you're an adult. You can do this.
You're a boss ass bitch.
Right.
You're 31 goddamn years old. You're a fucking adult. You know what to do. You know how many times I've said that to myself?
Yeah, me too. Like, well, not 31, but even like going to Jersey and driving out of Jersey and then driving back into Jersey fucking terrified me.
Yeah,
And I kept saying, like, I'm an adult. I can drive. I have an excellent driving record. Even if you don't ask my daughter though, because she doesn't like the way I drive. So,
good thing she's not
but
on the podcast.
right. She will tell you. She would have faces right now. Faces.
Yeah, it would be.
Uh-huh. Side eye all day. And then she would be like,
We know her too well.
but I had to like go through it and be like, nope, you're adult and you have GPS and you know how to use GPS. And even if, which I did, lose your way, GPS was right there, just like that, and was like, all you gotta do is go through here, go down here, and then you're back to where you were. And I was like, oh. And even when GPS couldn't tell me, because when I was at the airport looking for the garage, because that was another thing that I was like nervous about,
Yep.
there were people. There were people there that were nice and they told me where to go and I found it and I dropped it off and I said, good riddance.
You said, get me on that mother trucking plane.
I, after driving back into Jersey, I literally went up to the Sky Lounge and was like, I will take two of those Japanese whiskeys, please.
Make her
One
bubble.
ice cube, one. That's it.
I said, yes, ma'am.
That's what yeah, he did.
Um, Alrighty, peeps. So our next episode is the last of our seven deadly sins, and that is gluttony and sloth. And then we have some really fun things to end our year.
Oh, do you want to tell us or do you want to wait?
No, y'all get to wait. This stuff's too fun. Plus, I'm not hearing anything about anything when you know heathens are going to bring you heathenistic material. Okay?
Yeah, heathens. You
Don't,
made choices.
I want to hear shit about it.
You made choices.
You did. You can keep making those choices, and we will very much appreciate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, you got anything else for them?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Watch and look to where you're envious, where you're lustful, and if you want deeper meanings on it, there are YouTube, I found the History Channel made an hour-long program on each of the sins. So if you want a deeper understanding of it, it's excellent. And there's plenty of content. So
All right. Well, with that, we will see you in the next episode.